Hi, John here at Microaces. Welcome to Microaces Workshop once again and to part 5 of the Percee build, the twin engine aircraft. As you can see over my shoulder, just there, the militaire version of the Percee is well on its way to completion. I think the only thing that is required on that one is for a couple of servos to be installed in the fuselage for the elevator and rudder, the electronics board, the receiver to be installed, and all the bits plugged into it, and control rods, and then we can go fly, which is very exciting. I'm really happy how that turned out. And we'll have a look at that in a separate video. But for now, where are we on the debonair? Well, let's just go down onto the build board, and we can see here we have our fuselage with our horizontal stabilizer on. We've got our winglets at the side there, still uncovered. So in this particular episode, we are going to be installing the wing skin, and we'll also be installing some of the electronics wiring, or the extension wires for the aileron servos, and also the extensions for the motors as well. Yes, servos for ailerons. You heard that right. 4-channel aircraft. Now, you actually, because of the receiver that we recommend with this aircraft, you can actually set up a differential thrust for controlling the left and right movements of the aircraft. So you don't actually have to install ailerons if you don't want to, especially if you're trying to keep everything very light. You'll save yourself about 3.5 grams, maybe even 4 grams with the cables as well, not having aileron servos. But if you're flying outdoors, and certainly if you're using the stabilization system that's inherent in the receiver, then obviously ailerons is a very good idea. So, right, the first thing we need to do is fit our Z6 and Z7, and they literally wrap around the ribs that we've set up or built on the side of the aircraft. This one I've actually, you can see I've scored already, and this is obviously where the part curves round the ribs themselves. I've only scored there. I haven't scored anywhere down the top side of the wing that will curve over, because what happens here, I've designed this so that, well, firstly, obviously it locates with slots onto the protrusions out the side of the aircraft. So it slots on like that, and also there is a little slot that it goes into. You can see that little tab on the end of the wing there. That slots in to there, and then the whole thing just sort of curves over and comes to rest the other side there. So what we're going to do first off, as I said, I've already scored those. In your instruction manual, you will have the ability to lay your part down, and obviously be careful on these parts, because on the debonair they are they're white on both sides, although there are a few little graphics, a few panel lines on the top side, and we want to be scoring the underside. Here I've actually marked. I've marked the location of the scores. I actually did it in pencil, and I found that as an alternative to using the back of the knife, a sharpened pencil is quite a good idea. once again, you don't push too hard, but that that does the trick. So hopefully you can imagine or visualize using a guide for this, where you position the part onto the paper with the surrounding graphic to show you how to place it, and then some lines either side to show you where to score. So hopefully your scoring will be more accurate than mine, which is fairly freehand at the moment. So once we've scored, then what we want to do is just make sure that each one of those scores actually bends round, gives way. So there we go. Now when the wing goes on, what we want is this top surface to bend and that bottom surface to be as flat as possible. The ribs that are made of the 2mm vector board, they're very, very flexible. So the 1mm foam, which is much stiffer, will always try to pull the 2mm into the shape it wants to form. So we've just got to make sure that when this goes down, we're shaping it appropriately, so we get as much a flat bottom of the wing as possible. So we have both our sides scored now, but before we start installing them, we need to do a little bit of sanding. When they wrap around and come together like that, what we want is a nice join here, and to do that, as you'll see on your instructions, we just need to taper that edge there, put a shallow bevel on that. So I'll set about doing that. I may not, or I may pause the video whilst I complete it, because it's not the most interesting thing to see, and also it's right down the bottom of the screen. As you can see here, I'm putting it right on the edge of the board. I'm then getting my sanding stick, so it's rough one side, smoother the other. I'm going to start with the rough side and very gently start removing the material. Just see how aggressive that is. And actually that side is quite aggressive. Actually down there it's been worn away a bit more, so I might do that. So obviously I can flip it at any time and go to the smoother side. What I've found is sanding like that is not a good idea, because as this thins, sometimes you'll pick it up when it's very weak and thin at the edge and roll in, and that just ruins the effect. So a side-to-side motion or a sweeping down motion is much preferred. So that's the recommended technique. I'm sure you can come up with your very own, and in fact I know that some of our customers have invested in sanding blocks that are a little more effective and a little more controllable than our little sanding sticks that we do. So okay, so I can drop it on the floor. Oh, and move the camera. You can see it on the floor now. Right, let's get that camera back into position. There we go. So now we can look at the edge there and just, you can see I'm supporting it from the outside as I sand. Just want to make sure that the edge, where it comes to a point, is even. as much as possible. Obviously, this also, as I've no doubt stated before, increases the surface area that comes into contact for gluing purposes as well. So that's always a bonus. Right. So that's one done. I'll just pause the video and see you back here when I've done the other one too. So I think we're recording again. Yeah, definitely. So yes, second one done. Now, the process is pretty simple, and we are only going to do the top surface to start off with. Reason being that we can then install our cables both sides before making the final move to cover the whole thing. Oh, one thing we need to do before we settle that or settle this down onto the aircraft is we need to decorate the back of the underside of the wing where the fold falls short, and that's done with a T14 and T15, or is it T13? Let's have a look. T16, T14 and T16. So let's grab those. Now this is required because obviously the print, there's no print on the underside of the aircraft. Now, if you have purchased one of these Percee aircraft, you'll notice that there are a lot of bits. There's a lot of manufacturing that goes on to produce this particular kit. And if we can avoid doing double-sided printing, that actually takes quite a lot of the time to produce the parts. It reduces it. It helps keep that at bay, which obviously helps us to keep the costs down too, which is great. And this, in fact, this is well, there is a little bit further along the wings on the outer wings, but this really allows us to keep everything in budget, basically, without blowing it. So here you can see that's how the part goes on. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the inside, the underside of the wing skin, and I'm not going to put it down straight away. I'm going to. It's another new technique to learn. Just smear that glue around, getting it all over my finger. That's all right. I don't mind. And then I'm just going to wipe that off. I just rub my finger on the board until the U-hoo beads up and falls off, and then just let that dry a while before putting the Tyvek skin onto it. I'll do the same on the other side too. What I've found is that Tyvek prefers to go down onto a dried U-hoo. I think some of the chemicals in the U-hoo itself can react with the Tyvek sometimes, causing it to bubble a little bit. And of course, we don't want that. We want nice smooth surfaces. So if you let the Tyvek dry somewhat, the U-hoo dry somewhat, then the Tyvek, let's swap over because this one's had a little longer to dry off. So let's just stick that on the back edge, like so. There we go, all stuck down nicely. And ditto on this side too. There we go. So when that folds over now, comes down to that point there, and there's graphic all the way around. So with those on, let's do this one first. I can then start thinking about putting this part into position. I'll just dry fit once more, just to make sure I'm happy with how that all sits. Obviously, I want the part to come out flush with the outer rib as well. And yeah, let's just check that all comes over nicely. Yeah, that's all looking good. Just give this give the scores a little more encouragement, but I might pop an extra score on the top side. Okay, make sure I do it on the other part too. Sure we put that extra one in the manual. Make sure it becomes part of the process. Good. Right, now let's get this onto the aircraft. So I'm going to put some glue on the root of the wing, where the wing attaches, the wing skin attaches. And also on the spars, especially over the tops of the ribs, up to the tip. There we go. And also I'm just going to pop a little bit onto the tab there where it sits, and then that's some on the underside too. Good. So let's bring that to bear in place. So, and then as I said, we're not going to fix that underside just yet, but if I just hold it around in place, make sure the wing is firmly up against the fuselage, like so, and then I shall just leave it in place like that. As you can see, it's kicked up there because obviously this foam is resisting the curve. But I'll just let the U-boot dry a little, bring it back, and hopefully it'll stay in place. So I'll concentrate my efforts on the other side now. We'll get this, in fact, before I put the glue on, let's just make sure everything sits fine. those slots up into place. Yep, that all looks good. So let's just do exactly the same on this side and add our glue. Into the wing root, along the spars, top of the ribs. I'm just putting a little bit extra at the front there as well. And if it dries, it dries. It can still be effective. So. Go. Right, whilst that's drying, I'll just see if we can get this to sit in place, and you can just have time to go off a little. You can actually, well, I've got a dark build board here, so you can probably see this on camera as well. You can see where the ribs and spars are. Okay, that looks like it's going down nicely. And you can see it's actually staying in place now along that rib. You can see probably it's also kicking the rib up slightly, stretching it out. When we come to wrap it, you'll be able to level it out on the bottom just by applying pressure and positioning the underside accordingly. So but not just yet. Make sure everything's in position. Okay. Right, let's apply our other side. What we do, we just put our glue on our tab there. Sides. Okay, let's get this tab into place. There we go. Bring our wing down. Okay. So I'm just going to leave the aircraft like so for now. And I'm going to grab our little bag of cable extensions, which you should have if you've got the electronics pack. And in here, we have a servo Y cable, and we have two motor extension wires. So these need to travel from the inside of the cabin here out to the where the nacelles are going, and obviously these little things, this servo extension, need to travel out just outside the perimeter there They're quite quite tight. I should have ordered them slightly longer, I think, but they do reach. I know for a fact because obviously the other Percee, the Militaire, I've already installed them into. So anyway, the process of installing them is relatively simple. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a little Y cable out of the motors. Literally, all I'm going to do is just twist the heads together with the male pins, just a couple of times, just to hold them so they stay in place. Make sure that those extenders, the female plugs, can slide out to the end, and then using my trusty tweezers, I'm going to guide them out of the aircraft through the little hole on the base of the wing. Okay, there's one through. And, aha! Well, that didn't work very well, did it? Let's try that again. My little Y cable didn't work so well. Maybe a few more twists are required. Let's give that another go. Yeah, that does. Okay, I'm going to do it without tweezers this time, just so I can concentrate on what I'm doing. So, tweezers required now. Go on, out you go. Right. Oh, nice shot of my arm there. So let's just turn that upside down. And there they are. So these extensions only need to go to that compartment there. As you can see, when we fold over, we have access to them through this little hole here. We'll make sure that they are poking up when we do that. What I can do is I'm just going to put a little blob of Yoo-hoo in the middle of this panel here and here. And I'm just going to press those cables into that blob of Yoo-hoo, just so, just get some Yoo-hoo on there. So they'll become tacky with it, and then I can, once the Yoo-hoo is dried off, I can reattach them. Okay, a little bit on my finger there, get rid of that. So there's the motors attached, and the next part is getting the Y cable for the aileron servos installed. So we'll do that in a second. I've made a discovery. The little Y cables I thought were a bit short, were actually a bit short. Looks like the manufacturer didn't take notice of the specification that I'd given them. Well, on half of them. Half of them were 20mm too short. The other half are absolutely fine. So I've just snaffled that out of stock, so we can now pop our servo extension into the aircraft as well. As you can imagine, if these don't reach the ends of these wing stubs, then we're not going to be able to plug in the aileron servos, which would be a problem. Fortunately, we have some longer ones that I thought I'd measured them correctly. They always say measure twice, cut once, don't they? Right, I'm just having a bit of a battle to get these winglets to, or the skin to stick somewhat. But anyway, onto that. As soon as we get that round curve and stuck down, it'll be fine. I'm just fattling. So let's pop our servo extensions in as well. Oh, the other thing I was going to say was before you start installing any of these cables, it might be worth just plugging it all in, getting the receiver bound to your transmitter, and just test that all of the connections work. I've done this prior to installing here, not on this cable though, but wing it. Don't tell anyone. Here's hoping. They've all worked so far. So Sod's Law states that this might not. Oh, this is a. Oh dear. Come on, Mr. Porter. Just because you're on camera. Maybe I should have done these ones first before. I made the hole big enough. Look, oh dear, you can see my dandruff. Right. I'm going to remove the motors and do those as the secondary. An enormous gaping hole here. Able to do all of this? I don't know. Anyway, out you come. There we go. Right. Let's try it without the motor cables installed. Oh, straight through. And go to the other side. And you pop. We almost need a second person at the other end of the hole. Let's get a bit creative for this and a little bit of an angle in. Go on, nearly there. Let's try it with the tweezers. There we go. So, turn over. And now these should reach out to the edges. There we go. Okay. So, right, let's get the motor wires through. Now, this could be a challenge. In fact, I'm going to pause it so that you don't watch me making a complete fool of myself until I've done it. Probably come back and my hair will have grown and I'll change of clothes. Anyway, I'll see you in a sec. Ta-da! didn't take too long at all. 3 days to be, no. Right, that little bit of glue should still be there. Give us a little security for our motor extensions. There we go. And the Y cables, these should actually sort of come out to the edges there and there. And if you want, you can actually stick a little bit of glue. And I think I might do that just to keep them in place when we're putting the wing skin on. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue in the gap, the cutout in the rib either side. Go. I'm not going to actually hold them in place, but I'm just going to pop them on there just to get some glue on. So our next step I'll do is end up our motor wires. I want these to pop through these little holes here. There we go. And then make sure our servo Y cable is stabilized in place. The glue is all tacky. Okay. Okay. Good. Now, should be able to bring the base of the underside of the wing into place. And so we'll need to get that stuck down there, and need to try and get the edge here as parallel to the lines that we have here, and that's what actually flattens off the base of the underside of the wing. So, and obviously we want it nice and flat because the nacelle is going on there, and as you can see, the nacelle has a flat top part to it, just running along there. So that actually sits in like so. So that's what we have to do on both sides. So we can apply the glue as required to the bottom of the ribs, into the root on the underside of the wing. And then any surface really that comes into contact with the underside. Okay, and I'm going to run some along the back edge here. This will come to sit against the top skin of the wing. There we go. Just move around, do the other side before we move everything down onto the in place, just in case. just on the back edge, of course. Of course, of course. Right, let's switch back to the other side. Now the glue's had time to set a little. I'll just make sure our extender pushes up through. Get our wing down in place. There we go. It's all looking good. A little bit of glue on the Tyvek there, but that can either you can rub it off, or we can get the lighter fluid onto it a little later using a cotton bud. So I'm just going to hold that in place for a little while. The glue wasn't quite as contact adhesive like as I had hoped, but not too bad. So that connector's a little bit too far in, so I'm just going to try and prise it a little bit further out. I might get my pliers onto this. There we go. It's better. A little more showing. And in fact, I'll probably hold it when I come to connect a little bit further on in the build. Come to connect the servos, I'll hold that very firmly with a pair of pliers as I plug in the servo. I don't want that disappearing into the wing, so then we've got to dig it out. Good. Right. Whilst we're here, let's gently throw the lighter fluid on the floor. So let's just put a little on a cotton bud, clear up our smudge. As easy as that. Love it. Love the stuff. Good with orange juices. No, it's not. Don't even think about it. Okay. So we'll let that dry off. We can concentrate on the other side. Jesus, there we go. Pop that up through. And down that goes. Now, on that side, the glue a little more time to dry, so it's really just grabbed. So, there we have our inner wings on to the fuselage. Fantastic stuff. Right. Well, our next step is to get these nacelles in place. But before we glue them on, we're actually going to install the motors into the nacelles themselves, because obviously we've got to plug the motors in before we actually glue everything together. So I'll just pause for a second because we go and get some motors. Back in a sec. Here we go. 2 motors. On these motors, we're actually using the extended prop shaft. Reason being, we can get a lot of the rubber prop adapter onto these, which provides a decent amount of stability for the rotating and counter-rotating props. And also, there's quite a bit of nose on the nacelles. So we need that sort of extra length to get the prop so it's not scuffing against any of the protrusions. So we've got these 2 here. Let's just move that to one side. Let's bring in some nacelles and also our W3 ×2 plywood motor mounts. So the first thing we need to do is just remove the tops and just you can dry fit the motor mounts in. They push into the little slot in the rear, and it's quite a tight fit. You've got the sort of plastic resisting there. You need to just sand down the rear tab of the motor mount if it's not going in completely. Go. Let's make sure that slots in. Oh yeah, there we go. That's good. And then there are a couple of little tabs that sit on top of the wooden piece we put on the rear of the stack on the nose of the nacelle, and that should sit neatly down so that it's pretty much flush with the top of the sides of this setup. So let's get that out. So all we need to do is mount the motor, and what I'd suggest is because of the pathway, the routing of the cable for the motor itself, is that when you install it, just make sure that the cable goes down below. I'll get that in center shot any second. There we go. It goes sort of down below the motor mount through the gap at the back. And it's a simple matter of pushing those pins through the 4 holes there and securing it in place using a little bit of glue. Now, I'm not going to use a huge amount. I'm just going to use a dollop there and a dollop there. It'll hold the motor in place, no problem. But if we ever wanted to take the motor out because of failure of the motor, or we wanted to swap in a larger motor, for instance, which you could do, it's easy enough to do. We haven't got too much glue. We can release it with the lighter fluid, and it's not going to get too messy either. So there we go. Make sure that's sitting flat on the plate, the motor mount plate, and we've got the cable running through there. In fact, I'm going to put, you will probably have twists in your motor leads because I put them in, but I've done that beforehand. There we go. It just neatens everything up, and it makes it easier to cable route it once that's done. Good. So just set that aside. Do the other one. I'll twist the cable on this whilst it's off the mounting plate. We get our mounting plate and pop a dollop left and right. And away we go. Fab. Okay. So let's just pop this in place. Before we do, we need to get the cable routed. I'm just going to put a little upturn on the cable, a little hook that will allow me to push it through. And we're aiming for the plug to come out on the rearmost hole at the back. 1, 2. It was all going so well. I'm not very good at this cable routing, am I? Come on. It's there, it's just sitting there, wiggling at me with my shaky hands. Let's put a little more of a curve on there. See how we do with that. Well, it wants to come up the second hole. Come on, further on. Oh, so it's like one of those games where you're trying to get balls through holes. Right. There we go. Saved by the tweezers. Don't you dare. Don't you dare disappear. You out. And about. So. Our mounting plate in place. And then that's how it's supposed to sit. So I'm going to just add a little glue without, just hold on to that. There we go, so it's not going to fall through. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to keep the plate in place, just on the edges of the 2mm. And there, just a little double, a little blob at the front there, where the plywood meets the plywood. Pop it into place. There we go. Good. Right. Hopefully I'll make a better job of the next one, but you don't have to watch. I'll crack on with that and come back to you in a sec. Well, of course, that was a lot easier. It would be. So just make sure when you are building this that when you do get the ply pushed back into the slot, that the little tabs at the front on the ply mount sit down into the little space provided by that ply face within the build of the nacelle. Otherwise, this motor will sit up a little bit too high, and it will start scuffing against the inside of the hatch. So I've widened the slot slightly on the cut file for this backing plate here, so hopefully it won't be so difficult to actually insert the ply into that slot. So that should all fit nicely. But yeah, just make sure it seats correctly at the front there, or you will find that your gear on the gearbox will rub against the inside of the hatch. So there we go. And the secret to getting this through is making a much larger loop rather than a sharp loop, and that just went straight through. Plucked it out with the pliers, and away we go. Great. Right, put my hatch on. There we go. Wow, that's an extra 6 grams. There we go. So we can now pop our nacelles onto our aircraft, which is all very exciting. Provides a big change to the look of the aircraft as we build it. Very exciting. And of course, all we have to do here is just plug in our little motor socket into the socket provided to us through the hole there. So we might as well start with this nacelle, and I'll just make sure I get red to red on the plug-in, although it doesn't really matter. When we set it up, we'll be checking that these run as the props require. So we've got red. Red is in this case left, so red is left. All the way around. There we go. In. So that's plugged in, and now we just need to make sure that the cable gets out of the way, so that we can slot our nacelle into the 2 holes provided. And in fact, I'm going to just using tweezers. Let's pop the cables, there we go, into the nacelle rather than trying to get it to push through into the wing, which has a much smaller cavity in it. So this should sit neatly in the slots with those 2 tabs at the top of the nacelle. Well, they kind of split into 4 essentially, but let's see, they slot in to those 2 slots there. The little U shape in there should take into consideration the cable going through for the ailerons as well. That's disappearing quickly again. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's held there with the glue, so shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, so it literally all we do now is just glue that into place. So if I just I'll just extract that for now, then we'll get busy with the glue. In fact, I'll take for now. I'll just take the hatch off. And start applying some of this glue. So let's start. It's just basically wherever it comes into contact with the wing, we can add some add some glue to it. It needs to be glued well, as it needs to be secure. So don't be shy about the use of force in the form of glue. So let's bring this. Puts his finger, puts his thumb straight in the glue. So there we go. Okay. So it should be pretty obvious where this sits. There is a little bit of motion back and forth, but just make sure that the rear edge of the nacelle just sort of sits on the foam part there, and that should provide you with a good positioning for the nacelle itself. It pretty much slid to the back of the slot. Okay, and then it's all about just holding it there in place until the glue has grabbed. So I'm just going to sit here and hold it. You don't have to watch. I'll be back. So on to the next one. This is all pushed down, holding firm. So we just repeat the process, as you do a lot with twin engine aircraft, I found out. Repeating the process. So, hook up our motor. Make sure everything fits correctly. Apply some of the glue. Obviously, it doesn't go, when you're applying the glue, the wing doesn't go all the way up to the front here. Let's just get rid of that hatch. Doesn't go all the way up to the bulkhead here because it curves up. So I just take the glue up to the point where these little bits of Tyvek indicate sort of where the wing sits. Okay. Now on this side, I'm going to try something a little bit different, which is, well, it's not really different, but it's different for this particular process. I'm just going to bring everything to bear, dab it down, and then remove it. Carefully remove the string. Just let that dry off for a little second or two, and then place it down again, so we don't actually have to hold everything in place. Hopefully the glue will have dried enough to just grab everything and hold it together. So right, what are we doing? I'll leave that for a second. I'll be back with you. Okay, that's about a minute. So let's bring this together. Obviously, with the grab, we've got to just make sure that everything is sitting where it should be before we press home. Otherwise, it'll be stuck in the wrong place forever. Yep, there we go. There we have our nacelles in place. Fantastic. That's actually useful. This is the side that I held. It just needs a little bit more help sitting down. So I definitely approve of the dry and grab method. It seems to have the best result. But there we go. We're getting there, aren't we? Let's just attach our nacelles. That one goes on there. There we go. That's starting to look like a proper twin engine aircraft. Fantastic. Right. Well, for this episode, this is where I'm going to leave it. And the next step we'll be looking at is just we'll be finishing off the nacelles, because we've got a little junction between the firewall here and the wing. Same on the other side, and we've also got to do the fairing at the root of the wing there too. So the next episode we'll concentrate on that, and if we get a chance, we'll also start building up the rest of the tail feathers. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I hope your build's going really well, and I'll see you in the next episode.